Good morning. Okay, I'm gonna let you know what it was like, sort of like, for us growing up in the 50s, as, children. So, like I told you before, we lived in a neighborhood with quite a few kids. So we had Chuck and Cheryl and Peggy and Lauren and Carla and Steve and Kenny and whatever his sister's name was, and George on the corner, and a couple of brothers that my brother played with that I don't remember their name, Janet and Bruce Rodney, Madeline, Paul, Sherry. That's just a few that I can think of that would come and play on a daily basis, and most of those were right in the neighborhood, so they were, always available. So a lot of the things that we did was, like I said before, they played. Now I didn't do the balls games so much. My sister was a tomboy, and so she was always out there playing baseball and football and stuff with the guys. But I played with dolls. So me and Cheryl and Carla mostly played together, and we played dolls. And then Peggy was quite a bit younger than us, and she would join us playing dolls and stuff. We would do the other things that I told you about, like have block parties and put on plays for the neighborhood. I have a copy of some what we called newspapers that my brother wrote that are hysterical. That I need to put those away somewhere so you can actually read them. They're really funny, where he reported on things going on in the neighborhood at the time. So we did that on the corner by the school. Right on the corner next to the school, there was a big white 2-story old house that I believe was probably the original old farmhouse that went with the property. I don't know, and that's always what I assumed. But they had the whole corner lot, and their house actually didn't face the street; it faced the neighborhood. So their driveway came in off the street, and then their house faced the driveway. So they had a white picket fence that surrounded the corner, and then they had these huge eucalyptus trees growing in their yard, and then the yard was all overgrown, so you couldn't really see the house. You could see that it was 2-story and all that, but you really couldn't see the house from the street or from the sidewalk even. But we knew the kid who lived there. His name was Billy, and he was a bit older than us, so he would come out periodically when the guys played baseball or football or something that he was interested in. Most of the time, he was too old to come out and play. And he had a dog named King that was an old German Shepherd or some kind of shepherd dog. He was pretty old. And so we called that corner Billy's Corner, because Billy lived there, and so it was always known as Billy's Corner. So the rule in our house was we weren't allowed to go down to Billy's Corner after sunset. So when the sun started going down, you weren't allowed to go to Billy's Corner. There was a street light at Billy's Corner, so you could see the corner from where we lived, in about the middle of the block. So you could see the corner all lit up down there and stuff, but we weren't allowed to go down there. So one evening, I don't know what we were playing, something, and my brother and sister decided they were going to go down to Billy's Corner, and I didn't want to go because I knew we'd get in trouble. And they went anyway, and I was mad at them because they went off and left me. But I wouldn't go because I didn't want to get in trouble. So they went down there. So because I was mad at them for going off and leaving me, I went in and tattled on them, because I guess I was a tattletale. So I went in and tattled on my brother and sister and told my folks that they had gone down to Billy's Corner. So my dad told me, go outside and tell him to come in. So I went out, called him in, and and we used to have in our house, our punishment was usually to get a spanking with the yardstick. Now our yardstick was a good size yardstick. It was thicker than the ones they make now, and wider. So it was about I don't know, inch and a half, 2 inches, probably 2 inches wide, and kind of thicker, and it was a really cool looking yardstick. I wish I owned it today. I think my brother might have it, hopefully, or my sister. But anyway, it was shellacked and everything, and it was smooth, and it just was a really neat yardstick. But what we had to do as kids when we got in trouble was go get the yardstick, and that got you crying right off. And the yardstick was always kept in my parents' room behind the door. So we'd have to go in and get the yardstick. So my brother and sister had to go in and get the yardstick, and they're just crying, and I'm sitting over there kind of like going, so sorry, Charlie. I mean, So they bring the yardstick back in, and my dad says, okay, lay down on the bed. We always had to lay down on the bed with our butts out, and he said, lay down on the bed, and so they did, and he told me I had to lay down on the bed too. So I was trying to tell him, but I didn't do anything. Wait a minute, this isn't right. And so he gives, and our spankings were, the trauma in the spankings were having to go get the stick that they were going to use to spank you with. Of course, I'm sure you've heard those tales before, but that was the real punishment, was getting your own whooping stick. And so he swatted us, and it was across the three of us. So it's like, how much do you get? Enough to sting, but that was it. And so when after he was done and said, go put the yardstick away, I went crying like crazy, and I said, but I didn't do anything. And so my dad went, oh yeah, okay, I'm sorry. You shouldn't have got a spanking. I should have. I tattled, but, they weren't going to get in trouble otherwise. So he said, okay, here, wait, don't you take the yardstick, and I'll lay over the bed, and you can spank me for being bad. So I got so excited. I was so excited. I think I might have told you guys this story before, but it's one of my favorite stories of my childhood, so I'll have to tell it again. I got that yardstick in my hands, and my dad was laying over the bed, and I thought, I was so ecstatic I couldn't even hardly stand still, because I was finally, after all this time, going to get to actually spank my dad for all the times he'd spanked us, and I'm really going to let him have it. I mean, I'm not going to hold back. And so I take that yardstick and I swing it back, and it hits the dresser. And I go to swing it forward, and it hits something else. And I went to do it again, and it hits something. I could not get the stupid yardstick to go down to where my dad was laying on the bed for all the obstacles in the way, and I never did I got so mad that I couldn't spank him that I threw that thing on the ground and started crying and ran out of there. I was so mad. But I had the chance, and I blew it. That was crazy. But another rule that we had at our house, when my dad was home, one of the rules we had, we weren't allowed to go anywhere that my parents didn't know where we were going there. So if I was playing at Cheryl's house, for instance, and we decided to go over to Carla's house, I would run. Cheryl's was right next door. Carla's across the street. I would run over from Cheryl's, yell through the door, Mom, I'm going to Carla's, and then run across the street to Carla's house. And so every time we would move from one place to another, I always ran home and yelled where I was going to be. And that was a rule in our house. When my dad was home, and we were playing outside, and it was dinner time, let's say, or that he wanted us home for something. A lot of times my dad just wanted us home. And he would go out and whistle, and he had this really loud whistle. And that meant you came. And I don't know how it is, as a kid, we always heard that whistle. I mean, you knew you were going to be in big trouble if you didn't get home when Dad whistled. So he'd go out there and he'd whistle, and we'd come a-running, So that was one of the rules. We would ride bikes all the time, ride bikes up and down the street and sidewalk and whatever. And back then, there was no such thing as bike helmets or knee pads, any of that stuff. So yeah, we had lots of scraped knees. We all the kids owned skates, not like the ones that they have today. They were just skates, metal skates that you attach to your shoes. So they had these two little clamps that went on the front, on the toe of your shoe, that you would tighten with a skate key, and then a strap that went around your ankle to hold them on, like shoes. They were like shoes that clamped to your shoes, sort of. So, and the wheels were metal. They weren't wooden like they make today. So, I'm assuming, or maybe they're plastic now. I don't know. Anyway, that's what we had. So we all owned skates, and we skate around. When one time my dad decided to make us some stilts, and those were really cool. They were about the stilt part. Can you see this? I don't know. The stilt part was probably 8 inches of height that it would add to you, and he made them so that they would strap to your leg, so that you didn't have to hold them. So you still had hands that you could work with, and you could walk around on these stilts. And so what they had was they had a wooden base that was shaped like this, and then up here was a flat part that he put a board on flat, and then he would attach a shoe, usually a sandal, to the wood so that it would have straps. So you'd strap it to your foot, and then he put a belt on the stick that came up the side. He attach a belt to that, and then you could tighten this belt around your leg, and that would hold these onto your legs. So you would just have to always be moving to hold your balance, but you could do we could even run on those until the platform broke that held the shoe. But we'd run all over and play on these stilts, and we only had one pair, so it was, you had to get them first and stuff. So those were a lot of fun because it put you up way taller than you were. So if you at one point I decided to walk around the block, and you could actually see over a fence that normally you couldn't see over because now you're up there. So that was fun. Another time, I think I mentioned that my dad made all the kids in the block rubber band guns, and he had a lathe, and he had lots of tools in his garage. He loved to tinker, so he made us all handguns out of wood. That he cut them out with scroll saw, and then he sanded them all down so that they were smooth. So they were the width of they were about 1 inch, a 1 by width, and and then the shape of the gun, and so that it even had a trigger hole. But what you would do is you would attach the rubber band to the tip of the gun, and then stretch it back behind where the normal cock would be. So the rubber band would go from the tip of the gun, a wrap around where the cock would be on a real gun, and then when you wanted to shoot somebody, you would take your thumb and flip that rubber band off of there, and it would shoot people. And he made my brother a rifle, which we were all real jealous of. He's the only one that got a rifle, but he got a rifle, and his worked with a clothespin that clamped onto the rubber band, and all he'd have to do is press the clothespin and it would fly off, and was way powerful because it was a little longer stretch. So lots of times we'd be playing Cowboys and Indians, or and the boys, I never played Army, but the boys would play Army sometimes, and a lot of times we'd use the rubber band guns because it was fun, but it was like not fun to get hit by the rubber band. It's a wonder nobody ever got an eye put out, but we didn't. We had fun. Let's see, what else did we used to do? My cat's gonna photobomb the live stream, or not live stream. I wouldn't live stream. I might as well. I make so many mistakes anyway. But so we always, like I told you, my dad taught us lots of games to play, like Red Rover, I want so and so to come over, and then that person would have to try to come past you and you try to tag them. Or we'd play Annie over, where you threw the ball over the roof. Our house was always the gathering point because we didn't have a fence, no fence. So we were terrible neighbors because we did have a dog, but no fence. So when you let the dog out, he would go out and potty wherever. Terrible people. But our neighbors liked us, though, for some reason, so I guess it was okay. Anyway, like I said, no knee pads or helmets or anything like that, though, so it was, I'd just say a simpler time. You didn't have so much. It didn't seem like you worried about as much back then as you do now. As a mom, I worried all the time. I don't know how my mother ever did it. She just trusted in the Lord, I think, and knew it was going to be okay. I don't know how she did it, but I was never able to do that as a mom. I always thought if I didn't worry that something would happen because I needed to worry, so I worried. I still worry about my kids. um, anyway, the okay, I told you about Billy's Corner. We love Billy's Corner. Eventually, they ended up selling a piece of their lot, and some little apartments were built on the very, very corner, but that was after we were grown that they did that. Those are kind of some of the things that we did. We used to have a 5 and dime. If you don't know what a 5 and dime is, you see my cat. What a 5 and dime is, they sold things in there that were a nickel and a dime, the majority of the stuff in the store, and so there was a whole bunch of bins all lined up, and in each bin was some sort of little toy, and we had more fun. We had to do chores. We all had chores as children, and so if you did your chores all week, you'd get your allowance, which I think was about a quarter, and then when my sister is 2 years older than me. My brother is a year younger than me. So my sister was kind of always in charge. I mean, she's older, you know. So when my sister was available, we could walk over to the 5 and dime, which was a few blocks away, and we would wander through the 5 and dime. Oh, that was such a cool place for a kid because there was just so many fun little small things in there that you could afford to spend your quarter on. So that was always a lot of fun. It was cool to have little neighborhood things, you know. Back in the older days, before things got so overgrown, areas would have mom and pop shops where little stores that were owned by mom and pop, and I can remember there being one by the high school that had been there for years. Eventually, they all, of course, went out of business because they couldn't afford to keep their prices at what the big shops could afford to sell them for. So sadly, the mom and pop shops disappeared over the years. We used to have in another neighborhood by the high school. But the high school was just a few blocks from us also. So we went to elementary school from kindergarten to 6th grade, to junior high. Back then it was called junior high, 7th, 8th, and 9th, and then high school, 10th, 11th, and 12th. So all three of those schools were right within walking distance of our house. So it was, you know, and that was like that until my kids were in, until, you know, you guys were all in, your parents. I'm assuming, I don't think they're watching these. If they are, when my kids, you know, your dad, were in school, then they started busing. I remember when Jeff first had to go to the school far away, bused far away. He was, you know, the oldest, and this was a new thing for me as a mom, and he was going to not an area like ours. We lived in such a nice area because I lived my kids grew up in the same sort of area as I grew up in. We bought our house right there, sort of near that area. So they went to the same elementary school. They would have gone to the same junior high, but they changed it into middle school, which was 7th, 8th, and then you had 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th in high school when they went to school, which I never liked as well, but that's what they did. What do? You can't change it. But anyway, I cried when Jeff first got bused to the middle school. I mean, so this kid's in 7th grade, and me, the mom, cried when he got on the bus. There's something wrong with that. But I did. So that's a little idea of what it was like to grow up in the 50s. I want to talk to you about some traditions that we had too, but I'll do that next time. I want to give you a little piece of advice that I wished I'd have paid attention to when I was young, and I think you guys are old enough now that hopefully you're going to go, oh, okay, I should listen to her because I know stuff now. And when you grow to be this old, kind of know stuff. So, here's what I want to say. What you need to do every single day, at least twice a day, more if you can do it, but at least twice a day, get yourself a water pick for your teeth, a water pick, and put hydrogen peroxide in it when you use it, and water pick your teeth at least twice a day, and then get an electric toothbrush and brush them at least twice a day. Always water pick before you brush. The reason that I'm telling you this and that this is so important is that if you don't, you're going to lose your teeth when you get older. I've come very close to losing some of my teeth that you can actually see, and I don't want them gone, and I don't want to wear dentures, and I don't, I want to be able to chew on stuff without worrying about your teeth falling out, or blow on a cake candle like that one video that's on where the old lady blows her teeth out when she's blowing her cake candle out. I don't want to do that. So I've rescued mine a little. I think I'm better than I was a year ago, but you need to do that. Every single day you need to do that, because then you'll still have teeth when you get old, and you'll be very happy. A lot of little funny, strange things make you happy when you're old, and having your own teeth is one of them. It'll make you very happy. So do that. That's my advice for the day, is do that. And water picks have come way down in price. They're not much now. So, there's no reason why you can't pick one up. And I don't know how much the toothbrushes are, but I don't think they're way expensive either, the electric toothbrushes. There's a certain kind of fluoride you're supposed to have. I know they tell you don't do fluoride, but I think that's bogus advice. Because the little bit that you get while you're brushing your teeth and you're spitting that toothpaste out isn't going to hurt. And the orthodontist told me this, and they face people all the time who are losing their teeth. But I can't remember the kind of fluoride. So next time you're over, take a look at my toothpaste and you can see what kind of fluoride you're supposed to have, because there's 2 different kinds, I guess. And I was using the wrong kind when I had it. Usually I wasn't using a toothpaste with fluoride because everybody had said, oh no, fluoride, that's very bad for you. But I just think that's, I've learned a lot of things that I was told you shouldn't do, or, you had to watch out for it. Sometimes some of that was based in things that aren't necessarily true. So you could do research on the internet about it. But when I started looking up fluoride and reading more about it, and not reading in just one place, reading both sides of the argument, I just don't see I see probably more benefit from having some fluoride on your, just, that you don't keep in your mouth, but you just use to brush your teeth. It's beneficial. Anyway, that's my advice for today. So I will hopefully get another one of these up soon before I forget what I've already told you. But if I repeat things, Oh, well, that's, you'll probably hear it all again when you come to visit anyway. So, you know how Memaw is, because you can't remember anything. Love you guys. I'll talk to you next time.